Good afternoon, and blessings. Hey, again, I come sharing information with you. You know, had I 1,000 tongues, though, would not be enough to dispense the knowledge we need for our deliverance and our restoration. But God has given me the one tongue by which to share knowledge with you, lest we perish for lack of it. And that's scripture, you know, Hosea 4:6. So I thank God for this opportunity to bring on those who have the knowledge we need, and we do need it. And of course, I thank this beautiful brother Norm for providing me the space to dispense this knowledge. I thank my producers, Lula Salvador and Sheila Brown Bird, and my advisor, Juanita McClure, and of course my promo crew, Elijah, he's 13, and Halim, he's 12. He's 11. He said he's going to be 12 in a couple of days. Let me know that. I want to thank them all for their service. Now, you all know me. I'm Ruby Williams Shivers, your unapologetic amateur, looking for experts. Oh, yeah. And I promised I would dissect that concept on each podcast because I know it can get confusing. Because you may say, all these experts around and she has to look for them. Well, I'm looking for, quote, experts in a particular area, the area of Africanism. Well, what is Africanism? Thanks for asking. Well, that's the study of us from number one, the very beginning, first recorded human beings, I'm told. Number two, our contributions to creating civilizations and builders of architectural greatness. Number three, the kidnapping of us from our homeland. Number four, the transatlantic sojourn, the Middle Passage. Number five, the dissemination of us throughout the Americas. Number six, the hoisting of us on slave blocks to be sold to the highest bidder. Number seven, the separation of us from our loved ones, husbands from wives and children from parents. The introduction of us in a system of cruelty for 200 plus years, unlike any in the history of the world. They call it slavery. I call it genocide, or ma'afa. And the next 200 years of Jim Crowism and continued racism. Now, that combination of unparalleled events certainly requires something other than just grabbing a celebrity, famous sport person, or even an intellectual to define us and to determine our needs. You know, President Obama, I recall, whom I love and respect so much, he was commissioned to do a report on the black man called My Brother's Keeper. I'm sure he meant well, but some black men were offended. The inference was, don't blame the system for everything. Well, why not? See, since he was not the expert in that area, it was unfair to him to try to make him the expert. He was a Harvard graduate, President of the United States, but so was twice impeached, 4-time indicted, 99 accused former President Donald Trump when he attempted to be an expert on the virus and suggested the citizenry inhale bleach. He was not the expert. So it does not matter your position, your wealth, or your intellect. When it comes to expertise in certain areas, President Obama had not studied the effect of 400 years of abuse. See, there are experts in a lot of different areas: physics, engineering, auto mechanic, sanitation. But the expert in Africanism, blackness, if you will, is something special. See, I'm an expert in living black. Yeah, I live black every day. I know the ins, the outs, the rounds, and about of living black, but I'm not an expert in black living. That's a whole nother keg of worm, as my ancestral mother would say. As I explained earlier, expert on blackness, Africanism, is deep and serious. In my latest book, Why Shouldn't I Cry? Ode to the Black Man, I reference 3 voices that we, black people, need to be cognizant of at all times, lest we continue to be brainwashed. Or, as my guest, the eminent scholar, Dr. Kalfani, has advised me, the word should be brain dirted. But we'll talk about that later. But the 3 voices I'm referencing are number 1, the amateur, number 2, the expert, and number 3, the antagonist. The amateur can defend. And oh, you know I will defend. I'll stand on any soapbox and say we are the greatest creatures out here. I'll yell that to high heaven and I'll till hell freezes over. But you see, the expert can define, not just declare or defend, but give you scientific and historical proof. And, of course, the antagonist, a la Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. He will defy and defame the very fact that we were skilled technicians even before we even was kidnapped from Africa. So when I come on every Monday and define the podcast, The Unapologetic Amateur, looking for experts, it's not to be cute or a catchy phrase. I'm real serious. I'm convinced that our restoration will come through 3 sources. Number 1, the faith-based, because you know we are faith-based people who believe that there is a force greater than ourselves who is our Savior. And number 2, the historian. Got to know the essence of our being from the beginning to now. And number 3, psychology. Got to research, identify, diagnose what those 400 plus years have done and come up with solutions, cures, vaccines, if you will, for what ails us. That's why I'm so excited about my guest who's coming on today. Experts par excellence. But number 1, I'm going to introduce my co-host for the month. Young, gifted, and black. That is, if my co-host is here. I'm waiting. Is my co-host here, Norm?
No, not yet.
My co-host is not in?
Nope, not yet.
Okay, I see my guest just arrived. That's a great thing. So we're going to wait a minute to see if my co-host is on her way. It's been raining in this part of our world today. So we have just kind of, and done more than rain. It's just flooded and all that kind of good stuff. If my co-host is not here, luckily I brought the bio. So I guess I'm going to read the bio. Did I get any other bios?
I was rushing so much. I
Didn't bring. No, I have yours.
Yeah, we'll have to introduce them.
Yeah, that's okay. That's fine. That's gonna be good. Now, I have I've gone through what I generally go through every Monday, trying to give you some information on what I mean by I'm an unapologetic amateur looking for experts. As I said before, the amateur in me tells me that to be an expert in our situation, what I call Africanism, you ask me, what is Africanism? Good you ask. I have defined Africanism as that where you have to know the very beginning of our existence. You're going to have to know what happened when we got into Africa, became great architectural greatness, done architectural greatness, created civilizations. You're going to have to really know what happened when they came in and kidnapped us from our homeland. You're going to have to know what happened when we crossed come across the Middle Passage. You're going to have to know when we were hoisted up on the slave blocks, sold to the highest bidder, separated from our families, husband from wife and children from parents. And for the next 200 years was introduced the cruelty like the world has never seen and still have not seen, unique to the history of the world. And the next 200 years of Jim Crowism and racism, continued racism. So when you put all that together, you got to know there's a need to come up with some way to counter that. And I suggest that we call that Africanism because it's a combination, as I see it, of us having to get those, I say three type of persons that we're going to need. The faith-based person, because we know we're very faith-based people. We believe that we know that there's a God above all things that's going to help us get back to where we need to be. And, of course, we know, too, that in addition to that, we're going to need our history. Going to need to know the history in depth. You know, who we were before we even came over here, was enslaved and brought over here. And then, of course, the psychology of it. Because if you don't know why or what happened over the 200 years of just total unheard of abuse, you won't know that there was stuff created out of that, like syndromes, ailments, whatever you want to call it. And if that is the case, it tells me that you have to have someone who can identify, diagnose, create solutions. And those are the things that our people, we have our guests today. I'm so excited. That's why I'm so excited about my guests today, Experts par excellence. But first, I'm going to introduce, my co-host, I'm still not here. Oh, and she is such a bright young lady. She's young, gifted, and black. Her name is Jasmine Griffin. She'll probably be on. So I'm going to just go on and say Jasmine she was going to introduce my guest, but since she's not here, I'm going to introduce one of my guests, Dr. Akel. Now, you're going to help me with this name because it's such a beautiful one. I don't want to mess it up.
Kokayi
Kalfani. Okay. Now, I'm just going to need briefly, because I'm going to let you finish giving us the information of what you've done and what you've been doing, and the other guest. Dr. Akia Kalfani is a change agent. That's what we need. Motivational speaker, ambassador, author, professor, and award-winning TV host. He is director for the Center for Global Education and Experiences. See, I can't see. Okay. Now, Dr. Kalfani, I'm going to do it this way. Okay, I'm so honored, because I am so honored to have the three of you, and I'm going to just let you all talk. You didn't hear my spiel, but my spiel was about we got to get knowledge to our people, lest we perish for lack of it. And that's scripture. Hosea 4:6 says that.
Okay.
So we got to have knowledge, and I know you guys got a lot of knowledge. I've been talking, I've been listening to the doctors over there for years, and they are my very favorite people. So, I'm looking for knowledge, so what will you share?
Well, first I want to share a good afternoon, and thank you for having me back.
Oh, you're always welcome.
Yes,
I'm honored.
yes. And so I'm honored to be here today with such wonderful guests, my elders, who are in the house. And I'll say what I have to say, but I want to at least acknowledge their presence. and that's Dr. Leonard Jeffries and Dr. Rosalind Jeffries are in the room, and so we're going to go more in depth with them. But I can't start without recognizing
I'm so
my
honored.
elders.
I am
in
so
the
honored.
place.
I've been talking about them for as long as I can remember, and particularly this week, I said, "Oh, I've been wanting these folks on forever." So I am just honored.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Myself, I've been working on some beautiful things since the last time we talked. I've been working recently on a whole program on with folks from the continent looking at. As a matter of fact, I developed a program for when is this going to be? It's going to be in January, called is working on the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial Program. But what we're doing is we're focusing on Pan-Africanism and peace today. And so the whole theme of that comes about because Martin Luther King Jr., a lot of people don't know this, but Martin Luther King Jr. went to Ghana to celebrate the independence of Ghana in 1957. And not only that, though, he had discussions with Azikiwe from Nigeria. He had relationships with Kunda. And so all these folks that Martin Luther King Jr., the question becomes for some folks, well, was he a Pan-Africanist or not? So we're pushing the envelope on that, and I'm inviting folks from the continent to come here, and we're going to have some discussions on the 23rd and the 24th of January at Essex County College, and we're going to have Dr. Jeffries, Dr. Jeffries, and Baba James Small, and lots of other folks we're going to have there to really begin this. And this really, I see it as an opening dialogue because I've been doing a lot of work on Pan-Africanism in Burkina Faso, in Nigeria, in Angola. I'm striving to take some folks to Trinidad and Tobago, as well as to Uganda next year.
All right.
So, we have a lot of things in the works, and the idea is how do we really embody Pan-Africanism? And so that's one of the things I want us to talk about today. How do we embody Pan-African? How do we move it to the next level? And then there's another project I'm working on with a group of folks from all over the Africans from all over the world. And the name of the group is Afro for UN. But what they are is they're Afrofuturist.
Okay.
And so there's this whole body of discussion. A lot of it is in the arts community, but there's another body of it that's talking about how do we think about the future of African people and being a Pan-Africanist. My thing is, how do we do that from a Pan-Africanist perspective?
Okay.
Right? Having Africa at the center of thinking about moving to the future. And that's really the key for this piece of what we're dealing with. So I want to spend some time talking about those things and use that and we're going to use our tradition, our history as the backbone of all of this.
Right. Got to know the history.
Yes, indeed.
Got to know the
indeed.
history. Well, that sounds excellent. And one of the things that I'm so pleased with, we are getting to, shouldn't even say we're beginning to understand because we always have understood. We have people who have been out there giving us the history, giving us the understanding of who we are and what direction we need to move in. But the power to be going to always try to stop that.
Without a doubt.
Same as what they are doing now with Dr. DeSantis. I think about him and how he doesn't know that. I got to send him a little letter. You encouraged me. You inspired me, because that's how I created a school here. My group and I created a homeschooling for our little kids that we have around K through 6th grade. We want to start them learning their history at home. At least they get out there in school and they don't give it to them. Or like Dr. DeSantis said, we came here learning from them.
Right.
We want to dispel that notion, and as a result of that, we're just trying so many things here. Because I know it's all about knowledge. I know it's all about knowing who we are and knowing that we can't just know who we are. We got to create solutions. Got to get ways to get through.
That's the clue.
That's
right
the clue.
there. We got to get our folks to focus on. And when I wrote this book called The Hidden Debate, looks at affirmative action in South Africa and the United States. And I don't know if I talked about this before, but that the key for that book was to redirect our energy to talk about solutions.
Yeah.
Because we spend so much time talking about problems. And we know many of the problems. It's like H.R. 40, right, trying to get reparations. But the real thing, if you look at it, is that it's striving to commission another study. I said, we've got hundreds of papers and dozens of books already on reparations. We don't need another commission to study reparations.
Right.
We need to implement reparations.
Implement.
And so you got, so I think that to a large extent, that bill that's in Congress, it's been pushed back for decades now, but I think the reason why is that it should be, because really it's focusing on the wrong thing. We need to abandon that whole thing, because part of it is that it's not even focused on global reparations, and on top of that, it's only looking at the British impact of reparations in America, because it only goes back to the 1619.
Yeah.
Well, Europeans were already bringing Africans here under other auspices from the Dutch, the French, the Spanish. They were already doing that, and
Now,
so we've got to
good
look
you
at all
said
of them.
that. I want my folks to know you're defining right there the difference between the amateur and the expert. See, I stand on a soapbox and I defend our people to high heaven, but that's about as far as I can go. We just need folks like you all, the experts, who can detail it, historically and scientifically, the whole essence of us and how we got to where we are.
Right.
What I do know that we need to get under one umbrella, though, because we got a
Sure.
lot of experts out there.
Right.
We don't have to go looking for them. I know the expert. I can name them. I got them in my book. Dr. John Henry Clark. I got Dr. Jeffries. I got you. I got so many of them that experts that can know how. But I know that we need an umbrella that we same as with made the comparison of the virus. When the virus came through, it was a rarity for us. I mean, none of us in this lifetime has seen anything like it. And we knew right away we needed an expert. We didn't go looking around for anyone other than someone we thought had studied the essence of the viruses.
Yeah.
I went to my primary physician at one point. He said, I'm not the expert. So he readily knew he was not the expert for that. And for Africanism, we need a special type of people who have studied us from A to Z, not only studied us, but now know what has happened to us, what could have created out of the 200 years of unseen horror, and now know the cure, or to try to get the solution for it. Because without the solution, then we just out here pointing at ourselves and saying why we are not this and why that one is not, then don't even know the essence behind what we were before they brought us over here, and what happened to us when we got over here, and how it affected our mind, psychologically or otherwise.
Right.
But okay, I'm gonna let you go, because I didn't come here to talk today. I want you all talking today.
Yes, indeed. No, so I think you contextualized it well, and as we think about how Africans, how we came to this place, and I think that one of the things that we've got to do is that we've got to make sure that we're taking a holistic look at it, right? So sometimes we end up saying, oh, it's a political solution, or it's an economic solution, or it's or a problem, right? We focus on the problems, actually, or that it's just unity, and we contextualize that unity piece, but I think we miss it, because we've got to say that all those things are true, but we also got to look at education. We got to look at psychological. We got to look at sociological issues. We got to look at the spiritual issue. I don't say religious. I say spiritual, because religious can include spiritual. I mean, spiritual can include religious.
That's why I say
right?
faith-based.
Right, exactly. Because see that we have so many different Africans coming with so many different spiritual systems that we need to think about and not exclude any of them.
Right.
We've got to look at it from a financial perspective, right? What are the economic models? And we can't just use European models and ideas with all these things.
Exactly.
Part of our problem is that we have a lot of experts, as you've indicated. However, a lot of our experts are working for the benefit of Europeans, right? We take all of our experts, or many of our experts, and they go work at European institutions, and they spend their dedication improving those European infrastructures for them.
And brother,
and
you
not
know
for
what?
us.
Sometimes they are not the expert we think they are. Because I mentioned before you all came in about my brother. I love him dearly, respect him, President Obama. They used him they had him to create this program about, what is it, My Brother's Keeper?
Yes.
And a lot of our young black men were offended because the inference was that we cannot blame enemy for everything.
Right.
But how do you know that? We have not been studied to see what the 200 years have done to us to put us in a position that whatever.
Yeah.
In my book, I have this phrase that I said we need to think about seriously: excuse and explanation. Excuse is when you're born out of white privilege. Explanation when you're born from the slave idea. So you can never say we are using excuse for anything because we haven't been studied. We don't know what the 200 years have produced to give us the reason to say we are doing this for that reason. So when the black men felt that he was using that as an example of what their position was, that they were to blame. Don't blame the white man, or don't blame. Yeah, you can blame them as long as you have not been studied to see what all those things have done to you, how it has affected you. Now, there's a new thing that I'm going to get off this soapbox right now, and I'm going to let y'all talk because I want. But there's a new study. I mean, I don't know how new it is, but I had not heard it before. Weathering, have you heard that one? My pastor, Dr. Quick, I'm trying to get him on because he's been dropping some real Afrocentric stuff in church for us. But weathering is the study of why white men and white women, their health system is different from ours, the black women. And he made the example about when you're in a car, you young black men, and you see that light flash in the back of you, right away, you go through a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And that creates a whole lot of illnesses that we have not even documented.
I would say we have documented, and so maybe we should bring some of that to the table, right? So that and there's been studies on it, and Dr. Jill Pookrum wrote a book that really gives some good insight into the differences between looking at science from an African perspective and a European perspective, and even the tools that they use. She gave a good analysis. She talked about urinalysis, the analysis of urine, right? She says that many of the models that they use in urinalysis comes from Europeans, and so therefore that it has. You're not having the same kinds of things,
right.
And then in terms of your outcomes. And then she did another one that was really what I thought was powerful because she talked about bone density. So when people have osteoporosis, and she talked about that on average, African bone density is greater than European bone density. So what the suggestion from that is that when Africans get osteoporosis and the diagnosis is based on this European standard of osteoporosis, then if African bone density is greater on average than European, then that means that Africans who get osteoporosis is actually further along because their bones density is oftentimes greater than Europeans, and so then you have a problem in that. And COVID, you mentioned COVID. That was a great example because what happened during COVID is the oximeters, that dark skin gives a skew to makes oximeters, the measure of oxygen in your blood, inaccurate because it uses the way the device works is that it goes on your finger, and pigment, even dark fingernail polish, but pigment in the skin can cause it to read inaccurately.
Yeah.
And so all of these things are things that there's evidence about, and we just need to be able to start pulling that stuff and documenting it.
Exactly, like you say, we have been studying that, but they're not allowing us to have that on the one umbrella to say there's such a thing as studying Africanism in context in everything. Why we're doing certain things, when we're doing certain things, don't allow me. I'm the amateur. But when we grab our celebrities off the street or just anybody to speak for us, we know that other folks don't do that, and we don't do that with other things. We didn't do that with the virus. We didn't grab a celebrity. Matter of fact, when Trump came in and tried to tell us to inject the bleach, he was the president, but he still was not an expert. So we need to be very conscious of who we get to talk to us and about us. So now, please bring my guest in.
Yes, indeed. All right. So today we are going to, we're honored to have with us here
yes.
Dr. Leonard Jeffries and Dr. Rosalind Jeffries. So Dr. Leonard Jeffries, first and foremost, is the stalwart professor who began this whole movement for Black Studies
Yes.
in New York
Yes,
and
he did.
in San Jose. So for 22 years, he was a professor who was fighting the fight and helping to build programs all across the country. And using that space at City College as a space to create a dialogue and the foundation of that and creating the context for what we need to be thinking about. And one of the things that he did was that they tried to get rid of him there.
I know.
And that he was able to fight them and win in court, right? Because that's what you have to do. He has a famous the speech in Albany and so maybe he'll talk a little bit about that. That was a landmark discussion that he had there. I'll leave room for him to talk about that. But him with organizations with ASCAC, the Association for the Study of Classical African Civilizations. The Black Mayors of America. He took them to Africa. He's worked with the African Union and the United Nations, and he's born in Newark. And then Dr. Rosalind Jeffries. Here we have the example of par excellence,
Oh, my.
the stalwart, I would say, of art history. When we think about art history and coming from an African-centered perspective, we can have no better teacher. In fact,
No better.
she's still teaching to this very
Right.
day. She's every Wednesday. She's right there in New
Is
York,
she?
teaching young
Okay.
folks
All
about
right.
art history. And then the other thing is that her connection to spirit is so strong and so deep. She came to the college one day, and I'll never forget. She opened the doors, and the way that her presence brings in the spirit, and her connection to that is something that we have to really look at in a different way. I always say that the fool speaks widely about that which he doesn't know, while the wise sits silently at the feet of the elders.
The three things I told you, the faith,
So I'm always sitting at the feet of the elders over there. So without further ado, I'm gonna say ladies first and welcome Mama Jeffries into the room. Welcome,
Oh,
Mama
wow.
Jeffries.
Welcome,
Thank
welcome.
you. Thank you.
Hey, where's my clap? I got to tell it. Got to get a clap for that one.
She deserves a real clap.
Oh, my word, yes. I
Yes. So Mama Jeffries, welcome to the show. You're welcome to say a couple words, and then we'll keep it moving.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. And I do remember over the years that Nana Ruby Shivers we have been together doing various things, and so she's not an unfamiliar face to me, and so I'm delighted that she is engaged in this wonderful work here, trying to reach the masses of people.
Trying, yeah, we're trying.
Yes, indeed.
And certainly Dr. California, I don't even remember when we ever met him. It seems as if he's been just such a key part of our life. And you're talking about people who don't just talk to talk, but does the job. I always remember too, when Leonard was in the hospital, Dr. Calfani came in and he just stayed all night next to Leonard when he was going through his traumas,
Oh, wow.
and got up 5 o'clock in the morning to go teach a class. So that's what we mean when we say commitment.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. And none other than Doc. Can you say a couple of words before we move into the rest of the talk here?
Well, certainly, I am delighted to support anything that you're doing because you represent the culmination of what we've been trying to do, pass it on. And so we've had our shoulders that we've been able to stand on, and those shoulders were powerful and wide. So you're talking about a John Henry Clark, a quiet young man coming up from Alabama. But that didn't stop him. He didn't let anything limit him. He was able to do an assessment of who and what he was all about. And he always said that I have to give credit to 3 women in my life: his grandmother, his mother, and his fifth grade school teacher, Eveline Taylor.
Mm.
And so you could see Dr. Clark knew the strength that he had to work with, and he just passed it on to us. And then to meet his partner in New York, a hellraiser of the first order, Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen,
Oh, yes.
who really raised the roof in terms of us mastering this learning and this knowledge. And so when you have in your community and in your teaching process and in your mastering the success that you need, you have to give credit due to those that have made the sacrifices. And
Oh,
my wife,
definitely.
she was able to get. We don't have the right camera angle for this, but this is our secret society.
Okay. Maybe
This
I could
is
give that.
this is Dr. Jeffrey's favorite gathering of the elders.
Norm, do we see this?
No, a picture.
A
I
picture.
can hold it in front of me. This camera will get it.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay.
So, brother, that what you've just flew past is Africans about serious work that has to be done,
Okay.
and generations. So the person wearing the lovely blue African outfit, that's little old me.
Okay.
Little Lenny, they used to call me back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And then later, Europeans found other terms to call me.
Oh,
And,
I'm sure they did.
and other ideas that they could do to me. But you have to be a fighter. You have to understand that you're in a war. And next to myself is my great mentor, Dr. Clark.
Okay.
But he never let us forget that he had a mentor. And his mentor threw a question mark on all of us because he was not super melanated. In fact, he don't have no melanin at all.
Oh,
But that is John Jackson, who set up the African Study Club. They had a club going years ago, and one of the mentors was John Jackson. So he wrote a book on African civilization. That's John Jackson. Dr. Ben wrote a book on the Nile Valley. That's a whole nother area. And Dr. Clark gave all the seriousness to the women. His grandmother kept him moving. And even though she was delivering clothes, she had been working laundry for people, she didn't let that stop him. She put him in the wagon, and he was able to travel with this grandma of enormous proportions.
great legacy, huh? Great
It's a
figure.
legacy, and the legacy has to be passed on
Yeah.
because it's not ours. It's something that we've been given to work and to succeed with.
Yeah.
And I understand that because that's what my mother did. She mobilized and organized a community that she lived in Newark, New Jersey. She made sure that we had an educational process. She went into the schools and told them when they questioned whether my younger brother is capable of handling the schoolwork. She said, "Don't worry about that. His older brother has mastered the schoolwork, and his younger brother will follow him.
Okay.
And there won't be any difficulty in understanding that." And that was the amazing thing. And so we always had the support. And then,
Yeah.
but she liked to travel. And so during the vacation time, she would be traveling. So my brother and I said, where are you going? She said, well, I'm going down south. Oh, I'm going to Los Angeles. I said, well, what's going to happen to us? Your great-grandmother will take care of you. Your others go take
You know
care
that's
of you.
right.
And so we just got used to the movement of our people and the learning.
Yeah.
She also had Powhatan Indian background. So I said, Ma, come on, Powhatan Indians? She said, yes. And then she cited the information and the documentation of the Powhatan Indians coming out of Farmville, Virginia area. So we had to be serious,
Yeah.
especially since she said, look, I'm giving you some crayons and some stuff, and I want you to use your artist capacity. Artist capacity, Ma, you know, it's baseball season. I have a baseball glove.
Sounds like a little grand I have.
That's right.
Well, Doc, we're gonna come back to that in
Yes.
just a minute, because we want you guys to talk about your early days in Africa in a minute.
Yes.
So but this gives you an idea of
Yeah.
the richness of.
Yeah.
of
And he speaks
the-
of the elders. I'm saying I can't think of the scripture now that talks about the wisdom of the elder. I
Yeah.
say this saying I talk about that on my show. That there seem to be the few areas, maybe the only one, that age is not a negative. So I think Dr. Jeffries, they kind of appreciate us, the elders, when we got to dispel some information, misinformation, or
right.
bring in information. They kind of know we are there. And I tell everybody the important thing about having wisdom as an elder, I know I don't know everything. That's why I call myself an unapologetic amateur, because I know there are other things that need to be done for us. You know, for the Africanism I'm talking about, maybe for another subject matter. But for us, we need so much to get together under one umbrella so we can dispel the notion that we're nobody, nothing, and we have solutions for it. So,
and I think that when we look at yourself, the Jeffries, and we talk about that, providing that foundation of moving forward, and part of it is the questioning, right? Whether you know it or not. There's a whole bunch of stuff that I don't know, but the point is, who do I tap into that I know to bring information to it? And sometimes it may be somebody that's younger than me, right? And so we've got to reach into all of those different resources
Right.
so that we can transform the spaces around us, right?
Right.
And that becomes the basis of doing that. I want us to think about, this is December, so Kwanzaa's around the corner.
Yes.
And so not so much Kwanzaa itself, but the kind of the reasons behind it, and us thinking about that this is yet another way and space for us to think about this whole kind of Pan-Africanist push. And so then we can think about that, here we are in December pushing for transforming our community,
right.
and uplifting our community, and the idea of Kwanzaa is to get us to think about ourselves,
Yes,
right?
yes.
To think about the unification, to think about the challenges of how we connect, valuing our own contributions, and all of the kind of strategic ways that you do so. I think one of the challenges that maybe Kwanzaa doesn't put there, but we need to put there as we find ways to move forward, is that we've got to, and some people agree with it, some people may not agree with it, but I think we've got to look at all of the things that we do, and we've got to begin to understand when we set up things that are positive, that there's folks who are infiltrators who are going to come in.
Yeah.
And the thing that we've got to question, that we haven't really questioned well, is how do the infiltrators infiltrate?
Right, right.
How do they begin to undermine us?
Those I
How do
think
they
come-
unravel the
Okay.
things that we've been putting in place, right?
I call it there's in my latest book, I talk about the three voices I think we should always be cognizant of. That is the amateur, the expert, and the antagonist. You was just speaking of the antagonist. I say the amateur, or the one that will defend, because I'll get on a soapbox and defend you to high heaven. But that's about as far as I can go. The expert will define. The expert goes in and define historically and scientifically what we're about, what we're talking about. The antagonist will defy and defame. they will go in and like Dr. Governor DeSantis, come up with that mess that we had to come over here to learn stuff, and we was technicians before we got here and everything else,
Right.
scientists and the
Right.
whole 9 yards.
Definitely.
So those are the things. But just let me take 1 minute to recognize some of my folks who listening in. Thank you all so much. Lloyd Shivers, that's my son. He always listen in. And C. Lynn Waller, welcome Dr. Rosalind Jeffries, she said. Juanita McClure, this is heavy guest we have today, but giving up beautiful knowledge. You're right. And Darrell, my cousin there, so Afrocentric. He's back and forth between Africa.
I know him. We know
You
each
know
other
him,
well.
right?
Yes.
Hi, cousin Ruby. He says,
you doing,
okay,
brother Darrell?
Large audio is back. Okay, Stephanie said, I hear. Hi, family. Terry Benjamin, another great program, he said. Lloyd Chivers, Rose Garbage Dog. Hi, family. That's my sister there. Carol, Sharon, my grand. Good afternoon. Lula Salvador here. Sheila Brown, my producer. We gotta need you back here. Vanessa Orr, I'm watching. Thanks for teaching. Joseph Bird, I'm watching. Okay. Oh, I'm so proud. Laura Lynn, Juanita McClure. Thank you all. Keep watching and share. We need this information. Ernestine Middleton. The Jeffries are a gift to our people in the knowledge that they impart and have been teaching for years. Greeting from South Carolina and Lesterville's family. Thank you. Wilbur Dixon, I'm watching. Oh, thank you guys. You know I appreciate it so much.
Yes.
Go on.
Lesterville was a giant.
Yeah.
A giant. He picked up from Dr. Ben and Dr. Clark, and he kept moving on.
Okay.
And
Middleton.
Lesterville, Middleton, in Carolinas. In other words, New York is tough, Newark is tough. Carolina is rough. But Lesterville was a big brother who was on a mission.
Okay.
And he was able to spread that to so many others. And so you waited for that Sunday program of Lesterville, just as you waited for Gil Noble here, here, living up in these mountains. Gil lived and made an enormous contribution to take TV and make it work for you. And finally, he was inspired by Dr. Ben and myself and others.
Yeah.
And he said he wanted to go to Africa.
Oh, yes.
I said, Gil, are you serious? He said, yes. And we did work it out. We got him to go to Kemet.
Okay.
And it was an extraordinary experience.
Yeah. I tell every black person that if they can get to Africa one way or the other before they leave this earth,
That's right.
I've got a chance to go to all four corners.
Yes.
Never thought I'd get to South Africa. 'Cause when I started, went to North Africa, and it was apartheid in South Africa.
Right.
My husband and I, we took our kids to North Africa, and then from that I went to West Africa. My cousin was over there. He had been over there for years doing whatever. And we stayed with him for a month. And then I went to East Africa and was just coming back one day prior to 9/11. Went to East Africa and South Africa. So I did the four.
Oh, that's good. That's good. You know, I got a chance. I've been to a lot of places. I still haven't been to East Africa and North Africa, but I've been the other places many times.
Yeah.
So we got to still do that one. My son, though, I just had him. He was in Angola for 3 months.
Oh, okay.
And then he came with me to Nigeria earlier this year as well while he was there.
Yeah.
So, you know, getting those young folks there, getting them acclimated, I think is a beautiful thing. In fact, he had an art exhibition, his first solo art exhibition in Angola while he was there.
Really?
So, yeah.
Oh, my
So
goodness.
Mama Jeffries would be interested in that. I'll have to send you some
Yeah.
pictures and stuff. The consummate.
I talk about Dr. Jeffries, Rosalind Jeffries, all the time, how I saw her one day. She stood up for at least 15 minutes, just, ad-libbing without looking at the paper. I got to look at my paper when I'm introducing my show. And she just did it. I was just so and I said, wow, so I always love to hear her.
Well, with that segue, let me just ask Mama Jeffries if you'll take a moment to just tell us a little bit about, one, your teaching that you're still teaching, and then two, about your connection to the spirit, right? What is this? Because her and I we were in where were we in Virginia at the International Black Women's Congress earlier this year, and so she gave some really powerful your additions there. So I'd like her to spend just a moment or so, just help us out to understand your teaching journey, what you're doing now, and then connect that to the power of the Spirit.
Well, people say, well, who am I? And there are always various kinds of projects and trying to get into who we are, etc. But the greatest thing is to understand that if you're in God, there's a part of you that you don't know because of the infinite, fantastic universe, the megaverse that decided to come into the world through the bloodline, talking about the DNA and the special aspects of the DNA. Our black DNA, our black blood was so special until we know during that period of the melanin consortium that whites called it junk DNA. The cluster aspect they were calling junk DNA, saying that, oh, forget about that, we don't need to even look at it. But indeed, sometimes they would say, oh, well, it's primitive. But what does primitive mean? The primitive means in the scientific world, the title of the exhibition at the Metropolitan Museum of Art was The African Origin of Civilization. And so, therefore, there are things about our DNA that deal with the God factor. We know about HeLa cells, H-E-L-A. Henrietta Lacks, the book is out. And so once again, this woman in the segregation era, in the 30s, the 40s, when she passed away, her blood continued to mitosis, continued to repeat, so that today you go to Hong Kong, you go to Paris, you go any place in the world that has a hospital and laboratories, HeLa cells are used as the standard. And so that, what does that mean to us? It means that the God factor, that the blood is the carrier of spirit. And so we need to understand what we do in our cultural pollution to pollute the DNA, to pollute what we were born with. We were created from divinity with a blood that was pure. So to understand who we are as a people, to separate what Leonard had started me on, talking about culture carriers, cultural purity versus cultural pollution. What rituals, rites, and things that we are do that's incomplete and is taking us back to the wrong people, the wrong aspect of the antagonist within, the wrong aspect of the education and falsification of history that's within, the wrong aspect of the killer within. And we know that Spike Lee, when he was in NYU beginning his career, that's what he was dealing with. He had the image of the Ku Klux Klan, the white hat on top of the head, and all of the curse words that were coming out of the mouth, the terrible words that were coming. And then in the frenzy, he snatched off the conical hat of the Ku Klux Klan, and what was behind it was a black person. And so that was the sense of Du Bois telling us of double consciousness, the spirit within that we have ingested that continually segregates us. But we know that God Supreme is the one that, only one that can divide the soul from the spirit. We are the soul people, BAM2, BA, the peoplehood, NTU, God Force, like NTR of Kemet. NTR, NTU, the soul force is in us. And we must understand how we as individuals must separate the wrong flesh, the wrong aspect of soul, to the right aspect of spirit, the God that only can separate the flesh from the spirit, the soul from the spirit. And so that was part of the old Bantu Ubuntu philosophies. And so that with every juncture that we go to talking about our culture, we must begin to see the purity of who the God, oh God, our Lord, in ages past,
Yes.
in ages past, our hope for the world of the future. From
Yes.
everlasting to everlasting, thou art God. Our people did not say God didn't exist and there was no God. We took that God into the jazz. We took it into the blues.
Yes.
We took it into all of the gospel. And so
Teach.
to go back to retrieve. This past week, we had a faculty meeting, and one of the white Caucasian persons I had a little conversation with, and I asked him about the coming generation, the present gen video. And he said a lot of the young people are tuning into it. The Aretha Franklins and the James Brown, you type in it. And he said the young people are listening because they found a soul force that we were living off of in the old days of Soul Train, Detroit, Motown, all of that, and the whole gospel line. They were saying that some of the young people today have no music training, and they are singing down.
Yeah.
But if you look at those songs, 1,000 Scars in the Sky, and in other words, they were long love songs.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
if there was a generation that came out of the Martin Luther King and the Malcolm X that dealt with the love as a power, and they had the music training, they came forth with something that was very powerful that we seem to have lost when we got into the cursing and the especially cursing the mother. And they said now that we have the technology, y'all will know here in the studio better than I would, that there's something in the technology that you can put in the mic that will make the voice have that richness that we had naturally
Yes.
without the technology. So
Oh,
my
my
point
word.
is, don't lose the soul force
Yes.
of our ancestors that got us out of slavery, the soul force that took over in the Emancipation Proclamation so that we would be free. It was us. Sometimes I'm talking, I forget some little things, when you get older. And Leonard usually has the answer, and what he forgets.
I say that's where it's supposed to be,
That's
right?
where it's
Right.
supposed to be.
Well,
That
well,
is
you-
interesting.
Mayflower, the book.
I have to.
Lerone Bennett.
Lerone, there you see,
Bennett.
I was
Yeah.
call Lerone Bennett.
You
Well,
gotta have
But
them
you-
back.
Lerone Bennett
you know
was
what?
the one that started to say that the blacks went from plantation to plantation and we freed ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
And it was freeing ourselves under the spiritual force. Oh God, from ages past. What's the ages past?
Yeah.
What is the God? It's the God, Rock of Ages, cleft
Yes.
for me.
Boy, we
It's
gotta
the
have
God,
them back.
Ancient of
yes,
Days.
yes.
That
Must
was
have
called-
them back.
Amen.
And on that, we
I'm
have to say
sorry.
ashe,
I'm sorry.
ashe, and ashe. The beauty,
Excuse.
the beauty of this environment is that it gives you an opportunity to really touch with the people.
Yes.
But the challenge with this, and I have a TV show, so I know very, very well, is time. And so
right.
we have actually run out of time.
Out of time.
And I know they're looking at me like we just got started.
Just got started. We gotta have
So
them
what
back.
we want to
Gotta
do
have
is that
them
we want to
back.
have you back,
Yes,
and
yes.
we're gonna have a time because the show is only an hour long.
Yeah.
So and we're already over that hour.
Over that hour, but
so what we got to do is
it's
find
all
out a
good.
space and place to have you come back and to spend time, and maybe you have one time for Dr. J.
Yeah.
Where he can say what he's got to say. One time for you, Mama J, and you got to say what you got to say, and then we do the whole thing and make it happen.
Yeah. And very quickly, this is my last show for the year. We'll be doing something, at the beginning of the year. But be sure to watch next not next week. I'm off for 2 weeks. On January 8th, I'm going to have a post-Kwanzaa celebration with my little ones from the school that we just established, the homeschooling. So be sure to watch on the 8th, and we are out of time. But I appreciate my guests. I'm just so overwhelmed. I just always wanted them here. I know they had so much to say, and we're going to have them back again, I promise. But in the meantime, you all just keep watching, keep supporting this show. Because as I said, Unapologetic Amateur, looking for expert. I'm just not, that's not cute. That's serious. We're looking for people like them to come in and give us the information that we can get ourselves back to who we were. Okay?
That's
Good
right.
night and good luck and good night, and thank you all for watching always.
All
I
right.
say.
And you cannot lose with the stuff we
We
use
use.
if you use it right. Africanness. Use it right
I
and you're
am
on your
so-
way.
Praise God and hallelujah. Thank you, Norm.